Hi all you lovely kings, queens, and in-betweens, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Elaine, and today I'm going to be continuing my summary and review of Brandon Sanderson's Rhythm of War, the fourth novel in the Stormlight Archive. Today's video is going to be focusing on Part 4, and I'm going to jump right back into things with Part 4, Acknowledge the Summary. Chapter 73. Which master to follow? 8 years ago. Venli plots with Ulam. She wants nimble form soon. Echenai had taken the credit for everything, and she and her companions had taken strides toward unity. Ulam explains that they need to use the new storm to pull more Voidspren over from Shadesmar. Ulam explains that her people aren't ready to accept the new forms of power, that they need to learn how to fight properly in order to face the humans or be enslaved. Ulam explains how her people lost in the old days. We couldn't break the last herald, and the humans found some way to pin the whole Oath Pact on him. So we got stuck on Braze. Eventually, the Unmade decided to start a war without us. That turned out to be exceedingly stupid. In the past, Odium granted forms of power, but Ba'ado Mishram thought she could do it. Ended up handing out forms of power as easily as Hughes to give to each other titles. Connected herself to the entire singer species. Became a little god. Too little. Everyone relied way too much on an oversized Spren. Trouble is, Spren can get stuck in gemstones. And the humans figured this out. End results? Ba'ado Mishram got a really cramped prison and everyone's souls got seriously messed up. It will take something big to restore the minds of the singers around the world. So we're going to prime the pump with your people. Get them into storm form, and pull the big storm over from Shadesmar. Odium thinks it will work. That's on 847 to 848. Ulam promises Venli will be rewarded when the return occurs. States that they need to prepare her people to take on the new forms before summoning Odium storms, after which point everything will resolve itself. Venli visits her mother, who is struggling since she keeps getting everything wrong. Venli tries to comfort her as she thinks on how she wants more and plots with Ulam, who insists she will be worshipped when she brings more forms to her people. Venli states her ancestors' primary teachings were not to allow their gods to rule over them again, not to adopt forms of power, and never to serve Odium. Ulam says not to serve him, but to contend with him from a place of power, since she had something he requires. Venli knows war with the humans is coming, and that her people will be enslaved if they lose. She has to choose between their gods and enslavement, not their gods or freedom. Ulam asks her how she wishes to proceed. She asks that he help prove the humans will destroy her people. Jaxtham cries because she can't remember a song. Venli asks that Ulam have his agents living amongst the humans influence those at the palace. Get the Alethi to invite us to visit. Their king spoke of it before he left. He's considering it already. We must bring our people there, then show them how powerful the humans are. We must overwhelm my people with our own insignificance. That's on 850. Venli comforts her mother as she asserts she must make her people afraid in order to get them to listen to them. Ulam agrees to her plan. Chapter 74, A Symbol, Present Day. Venli blames herself for what happened with Ulam. She wants to try and make up for it. The Fused had spread rumors about Kaladin, including that he had been killed. Raboniel, busy with her research, had paved the way for the pursuer to lead the tower. His troops create tension and treat the humans cruelly. Elaine and Venli head to the Radiant Infirmary, where Elaine reveals a box filled with map cases he had retrieved from the Queen's information vault. He hopes they will help undermine the occupation and help Kaladin remain hidden. Elaine gives Venli a map of the tunnel complex under the tower. She thinks it may help them escape. Venli speaks to Liren, who claims to resist by controlling his situation and working with those who have power over him so he and his loved ones won't be hurt. 6 workers come bearing water for the Radiance. Liren notices that some of them have Shash glyphs painted on their foreheads. Venli realizes it gives them hope. Liren fears it will get them killed. They may follow in his son's footsteps, provoking a massacre. Venli thinks there is a chance, but also thinks it may help to keep them going. Serve as a symbol they can trust when they can't trust their own hearts, on 856. Liren isn't convinced and returns to his patients. Chapter 75, The Middle Step. Adolin had been incarcerated for weeks. Godeki had been allowed to enter lasting integrity to heal Adolin before being sent away. However, Adolin was given permission to communicate with his fellows via letter. Some of the team remained behind to await word of his trial, while others had gone back to share what had happened with Dalinar. A group of Deadeyes had gathered on the coast outside the city. Adolin respects the Honor Spren for taking many of the Deadeyes in and tending to them. Adolin is allowed to visit Maya daily to do their exercises together. The Deadeyes' behavior is strange. They should be wandering, not congregating on the coast. Bao, Adolin's primary jailer for excursions, thinks it may be because they can sense what is happening in the keep with Adolin's impending trial. Finally, Bao announces that it's time to begin the day's legal training, that the High Judge will soon return to begin the trial. Shallan had become extremely reclusive since they discovered Pattern had been lying to them. When she emerges, Formless comes with her. Vale and Radiant had been looking for Restaras within the lockdown city but hadn't had much luck. There is only a single individual left to investigate on the list of humans living within the fortress they had been given by the Honorsbrand. 16. They wait for him to emerge from his home to get a better look at him. Radiant asks Pattern why he bonded Shallan despite his fear that she'd kill him. He explains that it was so they would be complete and capable of facing the enemy, that he needed to try despite the risk because even if he died, it may be the step the other cryptics needed to keep going. Pattern admits that he has lied to them before, has been spying on them, and using the cube. Pattern tries to introduce her to another Spren. Shallan emerges enraged. She locks Radiant away. Shallan refuses to have anything to do with Pattern, whom she calls a traitor who betrayed her trust. 16 emerges from his home. Shallan stalks him and grabs him by the shoulder. She soon realizes he is not Rastari's, for the man is Shin and not Alethi. Shallan releases him. 16 flees. Pattern wants to explain what he has been up to. Shallan refuses to hear what he has to say. She just wants to move on. Shallan announces that they must report to Mraize, whose intel was incorrect. Rastara's is not in lasting integrity. Chapter 76. Harmony. The sibling won't speak to Navani, who is sorry for what happened. Raboniel visits Navani and reasserts that she wishes to end the war. Navani calls for a declaration of peace. Raboniel won't. She claims humans and singers were designed to fight one another, like how Stormlight and Voidlight don't mix. But if Navani can prove the opposite, Raboniel's theories fall apart. Raboniel claims Navani can still beat her. Humans have outsmarted the fused before. Navani explains that she has hit a roadblock. She needs an emulsifier to combine the light forms, which she thinks may be related to sound. Raboniel explains that the tones issued by Navani's tuning forks are the same as the tones issued by a sphere, only the sphere's tone has a rhythm to it. Each light has a rhythm. Honor's is stately, Cultivation's is stark and staccato but builds, and Odium's is chaos, but with a certain strange logic to it. The longer you listen, the more sense it makes. That's on 872. Raboniel informs Navani that Tower Light has two tones, a harmonic mixture of cultivation and honor, and a harmonic rhythm. Navani wants to know why light responds to tones, why there's a rhythm that makes plants grow. Raboniel has heard that the lights respond to sound because it is reminiscent of the voice of the shards commanding them to obey. That's on 873. Navani conducts another of her experiments and asks Raboniel, if you could imagine a rhythm that mixed Stormlight and Voidlight, what would it be like? On 873. Raboniel can't picture it. The pair sing the tones of Odium and Honor in harmony, allowing them to infuse a diamond with a vibrant black-blue light. Raboniel admits that the two lights did not destroy each other. She was wrong. That their rhythm is known as the rhythm of war. Navani asks why Raboniel would have preferred if the two lights destroyed each other. Raboniel explains that Honor was killed using some process we do not yet understand. I assume from things I have been told that some opposite was used to tear his power apart. I thought if I could discover this opposite light, then we would have power over the gods themselves. Would that not be the power to end a war? That's on 877. Navani realizes what Gavilar had been doing and wanted. He had been looking for a way to kill a god. Navani realizes something Raboniel doesn't. There's an opposite to Voidlight, the light Gavilar had given to Szeth, who in turn had given it to her. She wonders both why and how. Raboniel takes the infused gemstone they had created. Raboniel admits she thought for certain it was something about the nature of Odium's power contrasting Honor's power that led to the destruction. I was wrong, and you have proven exceedingly helpful in leading me to this proof. Now I must abandon this line of reasoning and focus on my actual duty, the securing of the tower. That's on 877. Raboniel had lied. She would not be upholding their bargain and leaving the tower now that they had discovered the new light. Raboniel says Navani can continue her research or obtain another job in the tower. She admits she is in Navani's debt. Raboniel departs. Chapter 77. The Proper Legality. 7.5 years ago. Venli is at the palace in Kholinar with her people, who are going to sign a treaty with the humans. Venli is busy sneaking into forbidden portions of the palace and questioning her plans. Couldn't it lead to war, and why was Ulam so eager? Venli had been asked to retrieve a bag of gemstone Ulam's agent had left in the palace. She knows her sneaking about puts the treaty at risk. At the meeting point, the pair discover a ciphered note that states Axon Dweth had been discovered. There was another like her in the palace, an agent who served another, and turned the king against her. She had decided to depart. Ulam decides to leave, alarming Venli. Ulam states that they lack a plan. Their people aren't intimidated by the humans. They're enjoying themselves and curious, which concerns her because Venli can clearly see the humans as a threat. Ulam departs. Venli eventually departs as well and is soon spotted, captured, and brought before an older soldier. Venli is to stay with them until the treaty has been signed. If anything goes wrong, they will speak again. Ulam reappears and announces they have a problem. There are heralds at the feast. Nail, who recognizes Ulam, arrives and takes Venli into his care. care. Nail wants to know how many Voidspren have returned, raves that he has not been vigilant enough, explains that he has legal jurisdiction here to act on behalf of the king. I cannot, however, take specific action against him. Tonight, I found reason to have him killed, but it will take me months of planning to achieve the proper legality. Fortunately, I have read your treaty. There is a provision allowing one party to legally break it and attack the other, should they have proof the other is conspiring against them. I know for a fact that Gavilar is planning to use this provision to assault your people in the near future. I give you this knowledge, sworn by a herald of the Almighty. You have proof that he is conspiring against you, and may act. The man who can help you is a slave for sale in the market. The slave you want is the sole Shin man among the crowd. This Shin man bears Jezreel's blade, and he is expertly trained in its employ. That's on 887. If she commits a crime, Nail will deem her innocent. Nail departs. Ulam asks if Venli thinks her people will be desperate enough to listen if they were to start a war. Venli is uncomfortable with the idea. She had only wanted to prepare her people for the possibility. Ulam wants to go ahead with Venli's original plan. He uses the information Nail had given them and Venli's ambitions to manipulate Venli into agreeing to strike first, so the humans fight back, and the listeners become desperate enough to take the forms or face destruction. Venli wants to see her people restored to power. She is willing to pay the price. She asks what she must do. Chapter 78, The High Judge, Present Day. Shallan tries to forget about the cryptic Deadeye she had seen. Pattern explains that he had been talking to Wit through the cube because he was worried about her. Wit warned him that he had been spied upon by the Ghostbloods, and that someone had heard their conversations, which was why Mraize knew so much. This means none of Shallan's friends are traitors. There is no spy, save for Pattern himself. Pattern agrees not to keep anything else from her. Shallan can't help but wonder who killed ELA though, even though Pattern's admission addressed many of her concerns. Shallan reports to Mraize about her inability to locate Rastaras and wonders if there is a way to confirm what Pattern had told her. Their conversation is cut off when she hears people shouting. Adolin's tutor, an Inkspren named Blended, who served as the official Inkspren emissary to Lasting Integrity, informs him that he is not ready to face his trial, which has been set for 3 days from now. The trial which would let the Honorspren pin the sins of the ancient Radiance on him and condemn him as a traitor and murderer. That's on 894. Blended suggests that they motion for a trial by witness. Adolin agrees. They review his general trial strategy, which is to persuade them that I cannot be held accountable for the actions of the ancient Radiance, that they cannot shun me or my father because of things done by ancient humans. In order to accomplish this, I will prove my character. I will prove that the modern Radiants are unconnected to the old orders. And I will prove that our actions in the face of the current crisis are proof of the honor men display. That's on 897. Blended outlines each phase of the trial and makes it clear she doesn't think his chances are good. I will give you the best chance I can, but please understand. Spren, all Spren, fear you with good reason. In order to prove you wrong, they need only prove that bonding men is a risk, that past failings of men justify wariness. That's on 898. The pair go to see if the High Judge has returned, so Adolin can make his petition. They discover that he has drawn quite a crowd and is human. Vale is surprised the High Judge appears to be human, appears to be Rastaras. Vale speaks to Lysyntia, the Honorspren who had shown her around when she first arrived in the fortress, and discovers that the High Judge is Clock, Herald of the Almighty. Vale is shocked she had been sent to find and possibly kill a herald. Chapter 79, Open Wound. Elaine is the subject of ridicule and bullied by both humans and the singers in Urithiru. He knows he is being watched by a Voidspren, bonded to a Kremling. Elaine delivers fresh sheets and pillows to the Radiant Infirmary. He's baffled by the humans wearing the Shash glyph. Many of the humans who had worn it had been beaten by the Pursuer and his soldiers, until Raboniel had overturned the order. Fused guards were now posted in the infirmary. Kaladin's parents assume they have been recognized. Elaine suggests helping them escape. Liren thinks Leshwi's protection is enough to keep them safe. Elaine and Hesina think that if Kaladin had maps of the tower, he'd be safer. Neither Elaine nor the people of the tower believed the rumors that Kaladin had been killed. Dabeed enters the infirmary. The sight of him opens an old wound within Elaine. He and Dabeed were the only Bridge 4 members who hadn't gained Windrunner abilities. Dabeed speaks to Elaine. He asks him for help because Kaladin has fallen asleep and won't wake. Dabeed fears Kaladin is dying. Chapter 80, The Dog and the Dragon. Kaladin is caught in a stormy nightmare where the wind hates him, he is without sill, etc. When all hope seems lost, Wit rescues him and explains that Odium has isolated him in a vision, although he isn't sure how. Wit warns Kaladin that he will have to go back out into the storm eventually and that things will get worse. Kaladin fears he is not strong enough to face it. He admits he is close to giving up and asks for a story as they eat rock stew. The story of the Light Weaver, Wit tells Kaladin, is known as The Dog and the Dragon, in which a dog admires a dragon he had seen and starts a quest to become one. The dog learns new things like how to farm on its quest, but fails to become a dragon. However, it saves one of the farmer's children. Kaladin is dissatisfied by the story. He feels as though it has has the wrong ending. By looking up at the dragon and by trying to become better, he outgrew the other dogs. He achieved something truly special. That's on 919. Kaladin begins to think the story is about him. He said he wasn't good enough. You think I have impossible goals, and I'm intentionally ignoring the things I've accomplished, on 920. Wit denies it, stating that any meaning is for you to assign, Kaladin. That's on 920. Kaladin feels stronger and learns the real ending. The dog realizes that he has it better than he thought, better than the dragon. Wit explains that life will have its up and downs, but things will get better for him eventually. Then, Wit drops his shield and releases Kaladin back into the storm. The nightmare vision so Odium won't notice him and destroy him. Chapter 81. Trapped. 7 years ago. Eshonai retakes war form and considers how her people had fled Alethkar. Food. Eshonai's friend fears things won't go well. The humans were retaliating. Eshonai and a group of her people had voted to have Gavilar killed because he was going to bring their ancient gods back. Now, all the listeners needed to do was hold out, face being trapped in the center of the plains. There was no escape. Eventually, they knew they'd have to fight the humans. Eshonai vows to fight them fiercely so that her people may remain free. Venli speaks to her friends about accepting Voidspren into their gem hearts to help guide them. Venli needs her friends' help, bringing additional Spren over from Shadesmar. Then they're going to get everyone to take forms of power and rule the Spren as opposed to the other way around. She acknowledges that Eshonai and her followers cast them into war, so they all have to take the step that will allow them to save their people. Chapter 82. Knife. Present day. Radiant contacts Mraize. She is frustrated he withheld information about Restaris' identity. Mraize thinks Gavilar may have known, but doubts any of the other Sons of Honor knew he is a herald, one of the beings they wanted to restore to Roshar. She isn't sure what to do now that their target has been located. Vale emerges and states that because she is not being trained and has been lied to, she can't see a point in continuing with their arrangement. The reward is of little interest now. She questions what else Mraize has withheld and if her actions go against the best interests of both herself and her loved ones. She asks why Mraize is so interested in Kolek and what she's really doing in the fortress. Vale finally opens a cube and finds a dagger. Mraize wants her to stab Kolek with the dagger, which will collect his soul, trap his essence within the gemstone on its grip. Mraize wants to communicate with Kolek while he is trapped. Apparently, Thydakar has an affliction he thinks Kolek may be able to help him with. Vale doesn't think it's good enough. Mraize calls Kolek a monster. He, along with the other 8, abandoned their oath pact and stranded Telenalat, the bearer of agonies, alone in damnation, to withstand torture for thousands of years. The enemy has returned, but have the heralds come to help? No. At best they hide. At worst, their madness leads them to hasten the world's destruction. Kolek wants to escape his duties. He worked with Gavilar knowing full well that doing so would cause the return of the fused and the end of our peace, because he hoped to find a way to escape this world. A way to abandon us, as he had already abandoned his oaths and his friends. He possesses knowledge essential to our fight against the invaders. However, he will not share it willingly. He hides himself away in the world's most remote fortress and tries to pretend there is no war, that he is not culpable. He is. The only way to make him do his duty is to bring him back by force. And the best and easiest way to do that is to trap his soul. That's on 930. Vale says she can't do it because he's Adolin's judge and his disappearance would arouse suspicion. The reason she had been sent becomes clear. She could take Kolek's place, vindicate Adolin, and force the Honor Spren to join the war. Shallan realizes they'd have to make the switch on the final day of the trial to reduce the act and learn more about him. Mraize insists that Kolek's delivery, sending Honor Spren to the world to bond humans, could save millions of people. Vale has her doubts about their ability to imitate Kolek. Mraize says that the herald's behavior is so erratic, it'll be fine. Shallan says it doesn't feel right. To sway her, Mraize revises their deal. If she does as she had been told, he will make them a full Ghostblood, which will provide her with knowledge and a say in the Ghostblood's actions. He insists she do what needs to be done. Save your husband, your kingdom, and your world all at once. Become the knife on 931. Adolin discovers the High Judge's identity. When Adolin approaches Kolek, he learns that Adolin has come to ask for the Honor Spren's aid in the war and to stand trial for the Recreants. Kolek thinks the war can't be won. The best thing is to escape, since the world belongs to Odium now. That's on 932. Adolin petitions for a trial by witness. Kolek accepts. The trial is to begin the day after tomorrow in a large public forum. Kolek makes it clear the trial is a sham before departing. Adolin doesn't think much of him. Blended takes Adolin away to prepare him for his trial. Chapter 83. The Games of Men and Singers. Venli learns from the stones that this place was once known as that a Spren resided there that was not deceased, as Urboniel had said, that the tower had been shaped from a mountain. Venli practices with the stone, with her powers, and remembers her past. Bentley meets with Leshwi and informs her the pursuer has located Kaladin's parents, that fused guards have been posted in the infirmary. Leshwi tells her to watch for other signs, that she is enough to keep them safe. Bentley asks why she is spying on Raboniel. Leshwi replies, "We watch because we are frightened. To Raboniel, the games of men and singers are petty things, but so are their lives. We watch her, Bentley, because we want a world to remain when she is finished with her plots." That's on 937. Bentley heads to the infirmary to check up on everyone. She discovers that Elaine and Liren are fighting. Kaladin had survived his ordeal and was in a coma, dying. Elaine and Dabeed refuse to take Liren to him unless he promises not to give both Kaladin and Teft to the invaders. Liren insists Kaladin will die. Hesina decides she'll tend to Kaladin in her husband's place. Liren protests. If Kaladin is bleeding internally, he will require a surgery. Liren agrees to help, but insists Kaladin will need to be brought into the infirmary if he's in a coma. He'll need long-term care. Dabeed says he'd rather die than be brought to the infirmary. Timber is excited. Bentley mentions that she knows of an edge dancer whose powers work, one they could rescue. Bentley, Dabeed, and Elaine rescue the edge dancer with the help of Bentley's powers. The Bridge 4 members lead the edge dancer to Kaladin so she can heal him. It still isn't time for Bentley to say the words. She'll know when. Chapter 84, Scholar. Something had always gotten in the way of Navani becoming a scholar, but now she was free to explore. Although she considers a different path for herself, she has too many questions, such as how one would go about creating Voidlight's opposite. She begins constructing weapons and traps, experimenting and creating more Warlight with Raboniel. They cannot create it without one another's help. Raboniel visits Navani and gives her a dagger with the ability to collect a Herald's soul. Raboniel admits she wanted to capture those noted to be within the tower, but they had departed with Dalinar. Raboniel explains that they've used the metal, Racium, to drain radiance of their Stormlight for quite some time. It conducts investiture, drawing it from a source and pulling it inward. We used it to fill gemstones. That's on 948. Later they learned they could use it to capture both Spren and Heralds. Navani wonders if the information could be used to recover Jezereza Elaine. Raboniel says she'll put their souls somewhere safe, so they can't be released again once captured. Navani explains she wanted the metal because it may be a better method of conducting Voidlight and Stormlight. Navani realizes the tower's defenses had collapsed. Navani's only hope was to create a weapon with the ability to kill a god. Raboniel tells Navani to write down her findings and continue her experiments. Chapter 85, Dabeed. Dabeed had always been different. He was 6 when he started talking, etc. His speech informed people of his difference, so he just stopped doing it. After his mother perished, others had grown meaner to him. Dabeed had wound up running bridges after he was wrongly blamed for impregnating the wife of his Light Eye's master. He'd nearly been trampled to death by a horse used by one of the soldiers in Siddius's army and taken on battle shock. Kaladin had really helped him overcome certain obstacles in his life. Dabeed leads Elaine up the tower, where they meet Lift. Dabeed leads them the rest of the way. They find Kaladin thrashing on the floor. Lift heals Kaladin. Dabeed informs Elaine that he never spoke before because he didn't want anyone to know he was different. Dabeed claims his condition will be fixed when he bonds a Spren. Becoming a Radiant will heal me, because my brain isn't supposed to be like this. I was hurt after I was born. The tower said so. That's on 955. Teft wakes up. Lift had healed him. She has the power to wake the Radiance. Elaine and Lift begin to fill Teft and each other in. Lift has been in a cage, her Spren has disappeared, the tower has been occupied and Lift didn't know about it, etc. Kaladin stirs. He's finally awake. Dabeed had returned the favor and pulled Kaladin out of damnation. Chapter 86, The Song of Mornings, 1.5 years ago. The singers are at war with the humans. Bentley is certain she made the right decision. Bentley wants her people to break in the hopes that they'll be more willing to adopt a new form of power, Stormform. Bentley's goal is about more than protecting her people now. She wants true freedom as well. Bentley speaks to Denshul, a farmer, who is helping her gather small gem heart pieces from the gem hearts their warriors win during their raids. The remainder of the gem heart is put to work in the fields. Denshul says he has saved several hundred gemstones. Bentley wants more. He thinks she is crazy but agrees to help. Bentley speaks to Ulam next. He thinks they are close to being ready to bring the storm Spren across from Shazmar to capture them. The storm is nearly upon them. Bentley makes Ulam promise he'll serve her when the storm comes, but they have to bring the Spren over first and persuade the others to take the forms. Bentley isn't worried, although Ulam appears to have some doubts about their ability to make their plan work. Eshonai appears in the shards of the former Shardbearer. She leads Bentley to their mother, who had become disoriented and injured her head. She isn't sure how. Bentley and Eshonai decide to get their mother a servant to watch over her. Eshonai apologizes for bringing their people to war because of the sphere Gavilar had given her, which contained a dark power, and his desire to return their gods. Bentley thinks they may want to explore that option. Eshonai chastises her. The sisters make peace over the Song of Mornings. Eshonai thanks Venli for all she does and has done. Eshonai asks if Venli could find her another form, which would increase her communication skills and allow her to act diplomatically. She wants to speak to Dalinar and explain things. Venli agrees to try. Eshonai hopes to talk to Venli better too, in that form. Venli admits to doing things Eshonai wouldn't like. She knows her sister will tell her it's wrong, and she'll be right. It's part of the reason Venli dislikes Eshonai so much. Eshonai had already fallen asleep. That evening, Venli heads into a storm to hunt Stormspren for the first time. Chapter 87, Trial by Witness, Present Day. Adolin's trial begins. Many have gathered to watch. Amuna, a Spren who tends to the Deadeyes within the city, is the first to speak against Adolin. She speaks of how 2,000 honor Spren were alive at the time of the betrayal, and only one survived, Syl. She claims that modern humans can't be trustworthy because they pillage, etc. Adolin tries to defend his stance by mentioning how his father bonded the Stormfather. Kelek thinks it's a good point. Amuna makes it clear she does not think they're kind to join the war. Blended is called to the stand next, so a Spren who is not an honor Spren would have a chance to weigh in on this proceeding. That's on 969. Blended argues that men cannot be trusted and Spren should not bond them anymore since it's unnatural. Adolin argues that's not true because Spren and sky eels bond to fly, for example. Blended mentions that the High Spren have considered joining the enemy. Adolin is not pleased. They serve Odium, who is evil. Blended closes with the statement that no more of their kind will die if they do not bond, an easy solution. Nodum, once captain of the ship, Honor's Path, is the third and final witness called to the stand against Adolin. It appears that Nodum's peers offered to end his exile in exchange for a false testimony against Adolin. Nodum can't go through with it and causes a commotion when he says, "Honor is not dead so long as he lives in the hearts of men." That's on 972. He is removed from the forum along with anyone who speaks the words. There is definitely some underlying tension amongst the Spren. Adolin speaks to Kelek after day one. He thinks the day went well for him because one witness couldn't refute the point he had made about Dalinar, etc. Kelek states the Spren deserve better than Adolin or himself. He refuses to order them to fight. To do so would be to abandon what little honor I have left. That's on 974. Adolin feels the trial isn't as hopeless as it seems if he can convince some of the honor Spren to join the fight, even if he loses the trial. Kelek responds with the fact that a lot of Spren are thinking about joining Odium's side and that if the honor Spren join him, many other Spren types would as well. You came here to recruit, but I suspect you will end up tipping these finely balanced scales and not in the direction you desire. That's on 974. After comforting Adolin about the trial and what he learned of the Spren's minds, Shallan falls out of a tree and pretends to be seriously hurt. Pattern sells the lie, saying she'll die if she can't get Stormlight to heal. Shallan is brought to a building containing lots of Stormlight-filled gems by Lysyntia and some others. Vale swaps one of her dun emeralds for a glowing one. Vale thanks Lysyntia for saving her. The Spren has to fill out some paperwork as Vale makes off with their prize. Chapter 88, Falling Star, a year and a half ago. Venli returns home. She has finally captured a Stormspren. She knows Stormform is near. Eshonai worries it could destroy their people. Venli counters they are already being destroyed. Eshonai heads into the storm and asks the Rider of Storms what he wants with her people. There is no answer. She claims everything she has done was to ensure the listeners remain their own people. Before she can return home, she encounters a chasm feed and a Spren made of white fire. While the chasm fiend eventually departs, the Spren follows Eshonai home. Chapter 89, Voice of Lights, Present Day. Navani continues her experiments. Raboniel informs her that one travels to other worlds through Shadesmar. Raboniel tells Navani she doesn't have to use titles with her anymore. Navani's discoveries have made them equals. Navani's latest experiment fails to make anti-void light. Raboniel admits the deepest ones are close to locating the final node. She reasserts that she's tired of the war and wants it to end. Navani asks if she'd actually kill Odium to end it. Raboniel's response suggests that she would not. Admits she is trying to unmake the sibling. Navani wants to find another path. She suggests joining forces, a treaty. Raboniel says no. She feels the best way to end the war is with her people in control of the tower, barring a discovery made between them. She vows to unmake the sibling. Navani is saddened by her response. Raboniel decides to give her something, a performance involving herself and a pair of singers, in which they play Honor in Odium's tones. After the performance, Raboniel awards Navani with the title Voice of Lights. She bows to Navani. Raboniel departs. Navani realizes the title means nothing since she, her people, and the tower remained in their current predicament. Navani realizes she has been working as hard as she had to prove herself to Raboniel, but realizes that was pointless too since it didn't lead to peace. She knows it will be hard to find harmony. Navani reaches out to the sibling who is quite weak. She explains that Raboniel is unmaking her. The sibling is afraid to die, thinks Elaine would have made a good bond. She can't do anything with the barrier in place. The siblings' words haunt Navani, who longs to do something. She realizes that the music the enemy had produced had caused the sand on her desk, used during her work, to vibrate and create patterns. Navani realizes stormlight and void light are vibrations too, and in vibration, she'd find their opposites. That's on 989. Chapter 90, One Chance. Adolin realizes the stands have been filled with those predisposed against him. He knows that he must use this time to speak to prove that humankind was worth fighting for. As he speaks, he is quickly interrupted by his friend who asks if he knew Dalinar had come close to killing the Stormfather. Adolin doesn't answer and continues speaking. He's interrupted again. He does not know what happened with the Stormfather and Dalinar. Adolin tries to speak to how mankind is banding together to face the enemy. He's attacked again and again with angry questions and comments, such as the fact that Kaladin nearly killed his spren. Adolin is about to swear no modern Radiants have killed their spren, but trails off. Adolin realizes that the spren don't care what he has to say. They had planned to ambush him all along. He cries, "You say spren don't lie, that spren are not changeable like men? Next time you try to pretend that is true, remember this day. Remember how you lied when you said, I'd have a fair trial. Remember how you treated the man who came to you in good faith." That's on 994. He challenges the spren. They are like humans and can't all be the same. Amuna leads the new Deadeye's cryptic, who was killed only a few years prior, into the trial. She claims it is proof of human lies, that modern Radiants can't be trusted. The trial continues to dissolve. Adolin realizes he has lost the crowd. He is assaulted by more questions. Adolin departs in shame. He had known it would be rigged, but had wanted to believe otherwise. Shallan and Adolin lie together after the trial. Adolin begins to think the trial was a stupid idea. He fears imprisonment. Shallan promises to break him out. Adolin wonders if it's right to try and get the spren to fight. Not everyone is made for war, and he can't promise them they'll survive. Adolin wishes he could get through to them, turn things around on the final day of the trial. He wishes he could have been smarter, so he could have won. He wishes he knew what to do. Vale and Radiant vote against Shallan to fulfill Mraze's plan and kill Kalek. Adolin wishes he could discover who murdered the cryptic. He knows that appearance was what ruined his chances. Formless awakens and says, "This trial is not ruined. You know, the more I contemplate it, the more I think maybe this trial wasn't such a bad idea. The High Judge is one of the heralds. Maybe he'll end up surprising you." That's on 998. Chapter 91, Worth Saving. Teft is glad he hadn't gone back to Moss. He and Kaladin are recovering from their ordeal. Kaladin had lost Syl. Fendarana, Teft's friend, thinks Syl may have simply lost herself through separation. Since Kaladin's surge binding works, their bond is still intact. Fendarana feels as though he'll be fine if he returns to where he first lost Syl. Teft needs to be tended to by Lift periodically, or he slips back into a coma. As Teft learns more about what's going on in the tower, a part of him wishes he hadn't been awoken. Elaine returns, noting there's no news from Navani, that she's been isolated for over 2 weeks. He asks what they should do, since they don't know where the last node is and no one can reach the sibling. Kaladin wonders if they should keep fighting, if his father is right, what people will do if they continue fighting. Teft explains how he got his father killed. 45 years ago, a group known as the Invisagers had visited his hometown, Talinar. They had brought both his parents under their wing and done horrible things to try and become Radiants. Teft was appalled and went to the City Lord when he was 8, thinking he'd run the worst of them out of Talinar. He was wrong. His mother was already dead, but his father was executed despite him being of the 6th Non. Eventually, Teft joined the military to get away from it all. Teft realizes he was able to save Kaladin by giving him Stormlight when he was dying because of his parents' actions and teachings. He feels as though they won in the end. Teft knows they can't see the future like Renarin. They have to do what we think is best, and be fine with that. It's all man can do. That's on 1003. Teft feels as though they need to rescue the Radiants. Lift knows she can wake them, but the group, which also includes Dabeed, can't figure out the rest of the details of the rescue. Kaladin decides that they're going to wait. If we have to, we will break in and rescue the Radiants. But first, we need to recover, we need to plan, and we need to find a way to contact the Queen. I'd like her input. That's on 1004. Elaine agrees to try and see the Queen by passing as a servant. The group agrees not to do anything rash while they wait. Teft realizes his friend was right. He was worth saving. Chapter 92, A Gift. Venli acts as Raboniel's voice as reports are brought in. Efforts to find Kaladin are to be redoubled. Afterward, Venli admits to hating herself for betraying her people. She admits to being confused and ashamed. She knew what she had wanted once, but then all those she loved had died because of her actions. Venli asks why they fight when the cost is so high. Raboniel explains it's for the comfort of those who come after them. She does not respond to Venli's questions about whether he will let them sing to peace. Raboniel claims that Venli has served her well despite her allegiance to Leshwi. She claims to like Leshwi since she feels as though she both remembers and feels why they fight, even though Leshwi doesn't like her. Leshwi makes Raboniel feel as though Leshwi would be a good ruler once they win. Raboniel pays Venli for her services, offers a gift, since the sibling will soon be unmade and then Raboniel will be forced onto other tasks. Venli is being dismissed. The gift is a writ of authority and a report from a scout flying over the Shattered Plains. Upon closer inspection, it appears the group we assumed were Natan migrants are instead Parshendi, a group of a few thousand, with a large number of children. That's on 1009. Venli admits that some of her kind left before the Everstorm. They included rebels who didn't wish to take on new forms, children, and the aged. They fled into the chasms and had been assumed killed by the storms and the floods they caused. Venli departs without giving Raboniel a proper farewell. Chapter 93, Strong Enough. Shallan no longer exists. Formless has taken over, but for some reason, Vale can still talk, and she knows Formless isn't a new persona because of her drawing skills. Formless wonders how to remove herself from her current life. Pattern doesn't want her to go through with the plan to capture the High Judge. Formless, the best of Shallan's selves, light weaves into Lysyntia and departs. Pattern tells her what Wit had told him to say, that he trusts and loves her, and she deserves both. Formless sends him away. She knows it is time to become the woman she'd been building toward ever since she left her home to steal from Yasna, join the Ghostbloods. That's on 1013. Radiant admits to killing ELA. She poisoned her so Shallan wouldn't have to do it, to protect her and prevent what was currently happening. Formless breaks into the High Judge's home. Vale explains that she knows why Shallan is doing this. She has assigned herself a new name, so she can block out the pain, running. If she becomes the darkness she feels inside, there will be no going back and she can leave everyone she loves behind before they leave her. Formless feels as though she can't be Shallan because she's weak. She strangled her father and stabbed her mother with her blade. Vale tells her she can bear the pain. Shallan doubts it. Vale announces it's time for her to leave. Formless had vanished. Shallan takes her memories back from Vale. They include meeting a cryptic as a child who became her companion. A cryptic who wasn't Pattern. Shallan realizes that Vale is the blankness upon my memories, the part of me that looks away, the part of my mind that protects me from my past. That's on 1016. Vale knows she's Shallan's Vale. The pain hurts. Shallan doesn't feel as though she can bear it and longs to become formless again. She's encouraged by Radiant as well. Shallan realizes she killed her first friend by breaking her oaths. Vale apologizes for the pain. She did what she could, but protected Shallan for too long. Shallan bears the pain and the weight of her memories. Vale fades. Shallan thanks her for her service. She had done well. Vale disappears. Shallan realizes her first pattern was here, a deadeye she needed to find. Kalek emerges from his study. He had expected someone to come kill him. Shallan says she won't go through with it. She wants to share information instead, about the people who had sent her, the Ghostbloods. Although first, Kalek must reconsider his judgment of her husband. Lysyntia and several other Spren barge in and accuse Shallan of trying to influence the trial's course, of colluding with the judge. Although Kalek defends her, Seeker, the prosecutor on the first day of the trial, says Kalek has experienced another bout of weakness and needs to be sequestered for his own good. Chapter 94, Sacrifice. Adolin appears for the last day of his trial. The forum is crowded. Adolin discovers that Kalek is indisposed because Shallan had visited him and tried to influence the trial's course. Shallan is being held and Kalek is suffering from his time as a herald. Seeker explains that he will replace Kalek as High Judge. Adolin wonders how he can reach the crowd as the trial continues. Maya is called as the final witness. She is clearly terrified and grows agitated as Seeker speaks for her, claiming she is in pain for what was done to her, that she condemned Adolin, etc. Adolin wants her to be released. Since she is thrashing and crying out, Seeker had made his point. Adolin is ignored. Adolin begins to feel Maya's pain and anger. Adolin lends Maya some of his strength. She looks right at him and speaks, "We chose!" That's on 1025. She goes on to explain that her sacrifice cannot be taken away. It was hers, not yours, his or that of the crowd. Adolin realizes the Spren knew what would happen to them if their Radiants broke their oaths. The Radiants did not murder their Spren, they decided, together. All this time, everyone assumed you were victims. We didn't accept that you were partners with the Radiants. That's on 1025. Maya agrees, the Spren had chosen. Adolin sets Maya down on a bench so she can recover from her ordeal. The audience begins to depart until only Blended remains. Even though the words were never spoken, Adolin had won. Adolin will not forget Blended testified against him. She admits she suggested Maya be used as a witness. Adolin is angry, but Blended reminds him the other Spren acted on their own. Blended admits to wanting to discover if what he had said was true, that Maya had spoken and they were friends. Blended knows there is a bond between Adolin and Maya and has found the truth. However, Adolin isn't radiant. Blended knows she must return to her kind and inform them of what happened, because Maya's testimony revealed that thousands of Spren chose death over the continuation of their radiance. They believed that surge binding would be the end of the world, that the solution was to bring an end to the radiance rapidly, with a high cost in lives. Adolin asked Maya if they had known what would happen if the Spren and their radiance knew they would become Deadeyes. Maya claims they did not, admits they did it to save them from something worse. Adolin wonders what it could mean. Blended believes it means they've gotten a lot wrong, claims Adolin passed the test for Maya's loyalty. Blended claims easy answers no longer are, but if dead eyes can begin to return. This is grand news, important news. I will convey this to my people. I do not know if making new radiance is a good idea, but I must admit that your ancestors were not traitors. Something did frighten them enormously, to cause humans and Spren to destroy their bonds, and if the Spren did not know they would die, then pieces of this puzzle are still missing. The questions are more complicated and more dangerous than we ever knew. That's on 1027 to 28. Blended departs. Maya follows Adolin, who needs to find Shallan and return to the Oath Gate so they can report on what had happened. He isn't sure what the Honor Spren will do, but knows the Radiant relationship will never be quite the same again. Chapter 95. What She Truly Was 14 months ago. The humans and listeners fought in the rain. The listeners were singing a song of summoning. The Everstorm was coming, and the listeners had Stormform now. Venli is spared by a human soldier when she pleads for her life. She knows the storm will save her people by destroying the humans and raising her kind who still lived. Venli notices Eshonai fighting another shard-bearer along the ridge of the chasm. Venli watches as Eshonai is pushed off the edge of the chasm. She thinks her sister will survive, feels nothing. Venli decides she will go and find Eshonai later. Venli sees a force that loves killing, that craves death. She can feel it building. She knows something is coming, something terrible. She knows the new storm is here. Venli feels exposed. Knows that if the storm sees her, it will end her. Venli seeks shelter from the storm and realizes several things about herself, such as that she wasn't powerful, that she was a coward who cares nothing for her people, only herself. Chapter 96, 1,000 Lies, present day. Elaine finds Venli crying in the infirmary over a map of the Shattered Plains he had stolen. Venli tells him of what she had learned from Raboniel, that they are not the last of their kind, that Thud, some of Eshonai's friends, and more had separated and been allowed to escape by Eshonai. Elaine tells her that Kaladin and Teft are awake and that they are going to try and wake the other Radiants. Elaine wants her help. Venli says she can only make things worse. Venli tells him her story. Elaine calls her a monster and blames her for what is happening. Venli announces that she needs to find the others. She plans to use her writ to transfer to Kholinar and go on a scouting mission to the Shattered Plains with the Heavenly Ones. Elaine fears it will lead the enemy to the last of their people. He fears Raboniel wants Venli to take this course of action, that Raboniel knows Venli intends to go to them, that Venli is playing into Raboniel's hands. Venli feels she has to do something. Elaine agrees, but at a later time. Saving the Radiance should come first. Venli refuses to help Elaine save the Radiance. She needs to see if the map is true. Elaine is upset and calls her a traitor before departing. Venli knows it's time for her to go. Venli speaks to her friends Dol and Mazish, announces that it's time for them to go through with their plan and leave. She doesn't tell them everything as they begin to plan their escape, wonders when Raboniel will tell the Fused about the others of her kind. Venli instructs her friends to gather the others, tells them about the plan to rescue the Radiants. She wants to depart during the chaos caused by the rescue attempt. Although she doubts she will find redemption amongst her kind, she feels the need to try and reach them because her mother might still be alive, living amongst them. Venli feels her mother is the only one who might still love her, despite everything she had done. Chapter 97, Freedom. Navani searches fervishly for the opposite of void light. While examining sound theory, she discovers that a wave could be negated and its opposite created, and presented in a way that nullified the original, canceling it out. They called it destructive interference. Strangely, the theories said that a sound and its opposite sounded exactly the same. That's on 1040. Navani is confused by this and soon learns that humans are capable of singing the proper tones, of hearing Roshar's music. Eventually, she gets her experiment to work. Upon further study, Navani discovers that the tone required intent in order to be formed and that she had definitely discovered void light's opposite tone. She wonders how she can create its light. Raboniel comes to visit. Although Navani tries to hide it, Raboniel discovers that Navani had unearthed a tone that forces void light out of a sphere. Navani realizes intent isn't as vital as she had thought. Raboniel remarks that Navani's work is dangerous. She could feel the void light contained within her gem heart respond to the tone. Raboniel realizes Navani is keeping what she's learning from her and threatens to rip the room apart to find Navani's notes. Navani reluctantly gives them to her. With the help of a vacuum, Navani creates a gemstone filled with void light's opposite. She hands it to Raboniel, who screams and drops it. She describes its tone as wrong, a vibration that should not be. Raboniel knows its existence changes the world. Navani is given permission to go for a walk. She grabs her notebook, The Rhythm of War, on the way out. There is an explosion. It didn't kill Raboniel as Navani had expected. When Navani asks what had happened, Raboniel admits to putting the diamond in the dagger she had given Navani that could both channel and move light. Raboniel wanted to mix void light with its opposite and realizes she had acted stupidly. Raboniel heals herself with void light and asks that Navani create another anti-void light gemstone. Navani does. Raboniel places the gemstone in a second herald-killing dagger. She stabs her daughter, whose mind had left her long ago, with it, killing her permanently. No more rebirth, no more returns. Free at last, my baby, free. That's on 1049. Navani realizes this was why Raboniel sought anti-void light, to show her daughter mercy. Raboniel admits she had lied. They are not capable of producing enough anti-void light to hurt Odium. Navani lets Raboniel grieve. Raboniel intends to confirm the death of her daughter was permanent by communicating with the souls left on Braze. They will have achieved their goal. Esu, Raboniel's daughter, is to be cremated. Servants begin to gather Navani's things. Raboniel takes her notebook. She promises to have a copy made for the former queen. Raboniel admits to needing to reconstruct Navani's work. She needs to create both a new plate and tone for Stormlight. Navani's upset. She defends her choice to try and keep things from Raboniel. I will end the war. That is the promise I will keep, for today we have discovered the means. Finally, a way to make certain that the Radiants can no longer fight. They function as fuse do, you see. If we kill the human, another Radiant will be born. The fight becomes eternal, both sides immortal. Today we end that. I have preserved the Radiants in the tower for a reason. Anti-Stormlight will need subjects for testing. Today is a momentous day. Today is the day we discovered a way to destroy Radiant Spren. I will let you know the results of the test. That's on 1050 to 51. End of Part 4. Interludes. I-10. Hasina. Hasina studies one of the maps of Elaine stole. She is searching for her father, Tomat. Liren assumes he's still alive. Hasina admits she wants her husband to appreciate Kaladin, to stop blaming himself for Tian's death. He felt as though he had caused it by defying Roshone. Hasina urges Liren to change his behavior so he won't lose Kaladin too. Liren reminds her that Kaladin has told him several times that he is no longer his son. Hasina is frustrated by Liren's stubbornness and behavior. She refuses to let her husband continue to pretend that Kaladin isn't their son. Liren counters his child wouldn't commit murder in his surgery room. Hasina counters that their son is the best person they could have fighting for them because he has been conditioned to care. Hasina shows Liren the infirmary, the humans caring for the Radiants, with shash glyphs painted on their foreheads. Liren sees a group of fools resisting. He feels as though they will be crushed like he had been. Hasina takes Liren to speak to Noril, one of the refugees from Hearthstone, who had been sent to the Ardents on suicide watch. Noril explains that he wears the glyph because Kaladin inspires him to get up, to continue fighting despite his pain and battle shock. Hasina explains that she wants her husband to talk to the others in the room about why they displayed the glyph on their foreheads and really see them. Hasina leaves her husband in favor of her maps. I-11. Aiden. Aiden, the 13-year-old son of a potter, wants to become a windrunner. He feels as though Spren wanted people to be brave, and by being brave, he could bond one. He feels as though his father is brave because he tends to the Radiants regularly and goes out every night to do something in secret. Aiden hopes that counts in his favor with Spren. As he heads to work with his father, he notices a lot of soldiers and wonders if there had been a disturbance in the atrium. He hopes he has not missed Kaladin's reappearance. Aiden and his father eventually arrive to work at Master Liganor's shop. Aiden begins work in Krem. His father wants Aiden to practice his plates. Aiden feels as though there isn't a point. He won't need to know how to make plates once he can take to the air. His father counters that he'll need to be able to do something until he becomes a windrunner, and that he should never underestimate the value of a job well done. You want a Spren to notice you? Take pride in every job you do. Men who make sloppy plates will be sloppy fighting fused. That's on 1062. Aiden wonders how his father knows. Master Liganor arrives and mentions that something is taking place in the atrium. He intends to close up shop. The shop is closed, and Aiden's father departs. He reluctantly brings Aiden with him to go watch over the Radiants. Aiden gets the sense that he'd pick up a spear and earn his Spren that day. I-12. Vulnerable. Taravangian knows he failed to recruit Szeth and knows Dalinar would only respond to the right words. Taravangian delays reaching out to Dalinar. Taravangian realizes that he needs to come up with a daring plan. He considers Nightblood, the sword no one had anticipated. Remembers part of a report he had received. The sword feeds on the essence that makes up all things. It will draw out Stormlight eagerly, feasting. But if there is no Stormlight, it will feed on one's own soul. That's on 1065. He acknowledges that Odium can be tricked and seems to have a core self. Taravangian wonders if he can make his plans work if he can get Szeth and Odium in the same place. Taravangian is visited by Shah Nat. He admits that his current state is because of the Night Watcher. The Unmade responds that it wasn't her, but the other one, the god. She touched three that I know, the child, the general, and you. The old magic, the Night Watcher. I begin to wonder if it was all a cover, these many centuries, a way for her to secretly bring in people she wanted to touch. She has been playing a far more subtle game than Odium realized. That's on 1066. Taravangian admits why he went to her, to obtain the ability to stop what was coming. He admits he doesn't know if he can stop it, if it can even be stopped, if Odium can be stopped. The Unmade admits she isn't sure. The power behind him is strong, but his mind is exposed. The mind and the power seek different goals. This leaves him not weak, but vulnerable, as on 1066. Taravangian feels Odium is playing with him, feels as though the Unmade speaks as though she desires Odium's fall. Taravangian asks the Unmade to lure Odium to him at the proper time. She agrees to help by giving Taravangian gemstones, which contain 2 of her children. She knows this will draw Odium's gaze. The Unmade wishes him luck before disappearing. Now that I've taken the time to summarize Part 4 of Brandon Sanderson's Rhythm of War, the 4th novel in the Stormlight Archive, I want to take some time to talk about it, give it a little review. This section of the novel continues to focus primarily on the plight of the humans and their allies during the war. We see more of a focus on the Shadesmar plot and Adolin's trial. We also see Venli trying to break away from the Fused and meet up with her people, the remnants of those that she left behind, and feels like she doomed. Even though she doesn't feel like she can redeem themselves, or rather herself in their eyes, she wants to be with them again and see if her mother is alive. And I think there's something beautiful in the way Venli is portrayed here. I remember not really enjoying her chapters as much as I had in the other books. But I think looking back on it now, I like how she's starting to realize that she's made mistakes, that she is not as selfless as she wants to appear, that she has longed to step out from behind Eshonai's shadow, to make a name for herself, to find power, and that everything she was doing wasn't for the benefit of her people. Yeah, sure, some of the things she was doing might benefit them in the long run, but really she wanted to do these things for herself. I like that we're getting to see a lot of growth in our characters as they overcome some sort of emotional trial. But I remember I didn't really enjoy it as much going through, although I can see the benefit of this growth.
This part is probably the slowest part of the book in terms of like actual action taking place. It is a lot of information and a lot of talking being kind of thrown out there, but we can kind of see now why the Shadesmar plotline needed to be left out of the last part, because it would have concluded too early if they had put it in the last part, because the trial only lasts through this one part. We get the culmination of Shallan's story, at least up to this point, where, you know, she fully turns into formless and then she gets her memories back, and we get to find out about her breaking her oath prior to the things that she remembered. And I think that this was dripped out in a fairly well-paced manner where we were curious about it, but it wasn't being shoved in our faces as the thing we were supposed to be caring about, but it was there constantly in the background. And then when we got the answer, I think it culminated very well in a really cool moment. That was a really cool chapter. We get the moment with Maya where she speaks out in the trial, which is something I had been waiting for since last book, knowing that eventually she would, you know, form a full bond with Adolin, not in the radiant sense, which I would imagine will probably be coming at some point, but the fact that she speaks out and kind of regains some of her true self, because that was definitely a plot that they were focusing on with Adolin in Shadesmar in the last book, because honestly he didn't really have a lot to do in the last book when he was in Shadesmar. We see Navani finally getting to accomplish the task that she was setting out to accomplish, and finding out that it ends up leading to the potential creation of a very dangerous weapon against her own people, against the Radiance specifically, and the Spren. And this is both a triumphant and a dour moment for the character, because she accomplished this thing that she was trying to accomplish, and that leads to elation, but then realizing that it's now out of her hands and she's essentially delivered a very powerful potential weapon into the hands of her enemies. And the stage has been set for what's going to happen in the last part, where we're going to get, you know, the big, you know, fight moments, action moments, and we get to resolve this story that's been building this whole time.
Yes, I think the poop has finally hit the fan, so to speak, and things have definitely culminated. I think the interesting thing about Shallan at this point is she realized she's been using these personas to protect herself, and Vale was really the shield from her memories. But it's been a while, so I might be wrong. I think that her history has been hinted at in the previous novels over and over again, that she had a hand in both her parents' deaths, but the details have slowly been building, so we get more of a distinct picture each time she calls back those memories, each time she takes the time to think about them. And I think this is the first time, perhaps, that it has been made distinctly clear that she is bonded to a spren before that isn't Pattern. I think it was hinted at previously, but now it's very clear, and it seems like that same spren is the one that Adolin met in Shadesmar during their current travels, the one that was brought out during the trial.
Yeah, that information has been thrown out there and alluded to, but this is like our confirmation that that's actually the case. And I like how Taravangian gets left off in this part where he's trying to figure out his next steps, and now he is in communication with Shah Anat, who has kind of been in the background throughout the whole story and, you know, dribbling things out there and, you know, touching the plot here and there, but never being a driving force. And we also get more talk about the Night Watcher, who also has had a hand in a lot of things that ended up leading to the plot being where they are, and learning more about the Night Watcher and the things that come from visiting the Night Watcher. And another mention again of Nightblood. Nightblood is the big tying force between the Stormlight Archive and the other Cosmere books, because Nightblood is originally from Warbreaker, which is a standalone, not standalone book by Sanderson, and it getting brought into this book series was something that I was really interested in because I thought it was really cool in that book. And you're getting a lot of tie-ins between specifically Warbreaker and the Stormlight Archives. They're seemingly the most tied together when it comes to the concepts that are getting talked about. And I like that. I like the whole Cosmere concept of tying things together.
I also just like the sword in general. I'm pretty sure that we're referring to Zeth's sword here, and it has a very distinct kind of quirky little personality that I appreciate. The other thing that really interested me about these chapters was that we got this little thread dropped when Maya spoke at the trial that the Spren had chosen to destroy their bonds and destroy themselves because it was a better fate than something else. And we don't know what that fate is. We don't know what was more terrifying than essentially death to force them to make this decision. And I think as humans, which are often inclined in our cultures to fear death and to fear the end and that unknown of what death is, trying to imagine what this can possibly be is very difficult and almost unnatural to try and call up. It's very hard to imagine something worse than that fate. And there's a part of me that fears that whatever it turns out to be won't live up to our expectations of it. Like, this is the most terrible thing imaginable for most people, and now you're saying there's something worse than that. What can that possibly be?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult to stick the landing. It always is. But given that we're only halfway or so through the intended length of the series, I think the series is supposed to be 7 books. There's a lot of time to build towards the culmination that'll be the eventual end of the series. But I also feel like we're almost at kind of how bad things can be. So for us to have multiple more books of building and building and building towards an end, it kind of makes me wonder like where we're going to go, considering we're already essentially fighting a god.
I guess we're just gonna have to wait to find out, Jer.
Yup. Well, you can find out with us, and you can find out through our book summaries here on the channel. If you're liking this content, please like the video, let us know, comment down below. Where are you in the Stormlight Archive books? Are you a new reader? Are you just listening to the summary and not intending to read the book? Are you reading along with us? Let us know. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of this content going forward, and ring that bell so you know what's up. We'll catch you in the next one.
Bye, guys.
Tisha Valenza, aka Poison Ivy, and you've just been watching King's Entertainment Reviews. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and watch.